Hello, everybody. Today we are going to cover a much needed topic when it comes to high dose iodine supplementation, especially given that a lot of people in the carnivore community go on a carnivore diet and they are told to increase their iodine supplementation regimen. Both of those things are going to destroy your thyroid function. Even if you're not carnivore, high dose iodine supplementation is going to put the brakes on your thyroid hormone production. And if you're not paying attention to the dosage and if you're not testing, it's very easy to go into a hypothyroid mode and you might not recover. Not everybody can recover the function of their thyroid after this happens. All right. So carnivore and Lugol's, but even if you're not carnivore, that will still, a lot of the stuff that I'm going to mention is still going to apply to you. This is the modern thyroid trap. So low carb is one thing, but megadosing iodine is a whole other thing. Low carb by itself is going to suppress your thyroid. This is why people's metabolism slow down so much when they go keto or carnivore. And now imagine adding on top of that high dose iodine that suppresses your thyroid's own function. So now we're in a double whammy. So this is why you might start noticing worse effects on your mood, right? You can end up more fatigued, colder, more symptomatic, actually not better after you start iodine supplementation. So a quick bio, I was actually featured, funnily enough, on the first carnivore documentary series called Reverse TV series. And since then, obviously, I've reintroduced carbs, and I definitely no longer recommend the carnivore diet for anybody, and especially not for long term. And I also have a PhD in nutrition and exercise physiology from the University of Miami, and I've taught at the University of Miami and the American College of Sports Medicine and DeVry University, Miami-Dade College, so many places. And I've worked on research as well for decades. And since then, I've quit so that I could focus on research and coaching my clients and sharing my messages online. And this is my 35-pound transformation. This one, the video, is actually after the 35-pound. Oh, I don't know why it's not working. Sorry, guys. It's working in the other ones. The video that you can see in other slides is actually after I reintroduced carbs and I dropped even more than 35 pounds. I dropped 7 pounds in the first 2 months of reintroducing carbohydrates. But mainly the work that I did on myself was raising my baseline dopamine, serotonin, and speeding up my metabolism, because when you speed up the metabolism, you also raise baseline dopamine and serotonin in your brain, and that drops your body weight set point. And I have videos on that. All right, here we go. This is the mismatch. A lot of the arguments as to why you should take iodine is because, well, look at the Inuit, they're carnivore, or they mainly eat carnivore, even though they do still have some carbs. And they don't have hypothyroidism, even though, again, if you look into the research, they do have cases of hyperthyroidism and hypothyroidism. But for the most part, they're pretty good. And so the idea is that we'll do carnivore just like the Inuit and have a lot of iodine just like the Inuit get. They get a lot of iodine in their diet. Except that you don't have the genes that have been passed on for centuries, for hundreds of years within the Inuit community to expect and to thrive on higher or mega dosages of iodine. And so because you don't have those genes, it's that mismatch that is actually suppressing your thyroid function when you are taking high dosages of iodine, like the Lugol's drops that are very commonly recommended. Also, the Inuit are having marine foods, so they're getting natural iodine, not in supplemental form. They're taking lots of iodine, selenium as well, and they have lifelong exposure to that. Whereas the modern carnivore who's supplementing with Lugol's, they're mainly eating a beef-heavy diet, not a lot of seafood, not a lot of iodine coming from their diet. So they're not getting a lot of natural sources of iodine. And then they're megadosing the supplements, and they don't have the genetic mutations that have been passed on within the Inuit community, which is a rare mutation specifically for that group. So you don't share the same genes. So what Inuit eating actually looked like, it wasn't just meat, it was fish, marine mammals, more native foods, and micronutrient density. So they had iodine, selenium, and it took adaptation over centuries for them to actually be able to be just fine with very high dosages of iodine. This is very different from a few drops of Lugol's on top of a modern beef-only pattern. Check out this paper. It's open access. You can read it. Adaptation to a high iodine intake in Greenland Inuit suggested by thyroid disease pattern. And they talk about the adaptations, the genetic adaptations that occurred in the Inuits over centuries, over hundreds of years. And that's why they can do it. And if they don't get mega dosages, then they develop hypothyroidism. But we can't do it. Okay? What the modern carnivore often looks like, you're basically on a carnivore diet, you're eating beef, eggs, butter, and a little bit of seafood. So you're mainly having land animals. And so the land animal carnivore is not automatically high in iodine. That's the setup for people to panic and reach for high dose drops. Like, oh my gosh, I'm not having any iodine. So here's the solution. Just do like what the Inuit do. No, we don't do that, because the research is very clear on what happens if you do that. And I think a lot of you are probably experiencing that. Maybe that's why you're watching this video. So your body needs iodine in micrograms, right? The RDA is 150 micrograms, and the upper limit above which you might start developing toxic effects is 1,100 micrograms. So just one drop of Lugol's is you're gonna be over the upper limit or very close to the upper limit. And you're probably having more drops. I've heard horror stories from people telling me that certain groups in the carnivore community are recommending multiple drops of Lugol's, which is insane. So if you do all those drops of Lugol's, or you're taking mega dosages of iodine, there's something called the Wolff-Chaikoff brake, whereby your thyroid puts the brakes on thyroid production. It stops literally producing thyroid. It should come back once you stop the high dose iodine exposure. But if you're taking iodine drops all the time, it never stops. The brake is always there. So you're constantly now not producing active thyroid. And so now you're developing hypothyroidism, a slow metabolism, and all the symptoms from hypothyroidism, depression, anxiety, weight gain, etc. Hair falling, which I know is so common in the carnivore community. So in susceptible people, the gland does not always escape the brake cleanly, right? You're not going to escape the brake because you're constantly exposing your body to higher and higher levels of iodine. It's constant. The brake is always there. That is why some people feel colder, heavier, flatter, and more exhausted after starting high-dose iodine. And the problem is that recovery, once you stop, if you would just watch this right now and you're freaked out and you're going to stop, it doesn't mean you're going to feel better tomorrow. Recovery can take weeks to a few months, not necessarily days. And it depends if you already have other issues, it might take even longer. I don't know if there's anybody who will not be able to recover their thyroid function, but generally it's a long recovery from this madness, unfortunately. So what the data does not say, it does not say that every modern follower should chase high iodine exposure. It does not say that beef and Lugol's drops means you can mimic traditional Inuit physiology, because you don't have their centuries old, handed down genetic mutations, genetic adaptations. So iodine megadoses are not harmless. You really want to be careful with that. So why followers get into trouble? You're having, first of all, different foods in the Inuits, different genetics. So that's really it. It's the genetics. You're taking way higher dosages, and you have a different thyroid history. So the internet flattens all of that into one message: just take more iodine. Unfortunately, that can do way more harm than good. And again, recovery can take a very long time. Not to mention, there is no bacteria, parasite, virus, anything that lives in your microbiome that can develop resistance to iodine. So even the good probiotics and the good yeasts and the good fungus that is supposed to live in our gut, the good probiotics basically, they also get wiped out, because it's like you're sterilizing your system, your digestive tract. So when you're taking high dose of a sterilizing agent, You might get some relief if you've had bad bugs growing and it killed them off, but you're also killing off all the good bugs as well. So you're going to end up right where you started and actually in a worse off position. So what the evidence supports is that high dose iodine, or just any amount of iodine, but the higher the dosage and the longer, the worse the destruction of your microbiome. So that's a very different thing from saying it's, iodine is going to heal everything, right? And it's risk-free and you can take mega dosages. So marketing says wipe out the bad stuff, but biology says be careful what you disturb. Be very careful. Who is most likely to react badly? If you have Hashimoto's or thyroid autoimmunity already, now you just added an extra layer of stress. If you have nodules or Graves' history, if you're pregnant or postpartum, you just gave birth. If you're already undereating, which a lot of people on carnivore might be undereating, if you're stressed out, any kind of ketosis, so keto or carnivore, it's a state of stress. So that's already a bad thing to add on top of hypothyroidism. And of course, if you're already having symptoms, doing keto and carnivore diets or any kind of diet, if you're already having symptoms of hypothyroidism and now you add in one extra layer that leads to more hypothyroidism, you're going to feel the symptoms the most. The more fragile the thyroid terrain, the worse a blind iodine experiment can go. Red flags after starting iodine. If you get more fatigued, cold intolerance, constipation, hair loss, brain fog, weight rebound, all of those are symptoms. The list is so much longer than that, by the way, for hypothyroidism. So if things got worse after the iodine might be the problem. So it's a lot smarter to get your iodine from food, from actual seafood. And that's another one, test, don't guess. Because if you are iodine deficient, it's fine to supplement for a short period of time until we correct the deficiency, but just enough to correct the deficiency, because too much iodine will sterilize your gut, and that's not what we want. And stop treating Lugol's like a vitamin. It's not a vitamin, right? More is not better. It's actually way worse. So don't let influencer logic turn a low-carb experiment into an iodine experiment. Just pay attention. Where are you getting your information from? What are the qualifications of the people that you're taking information from? I didn't spend decades upon decades killing myself to get all my degrees in nutrition and exercise physiology and PhD and a doctorate and hospital internship and all that kind of stuff. Like that matters. Pay attention where you're getting your information from, because the consequences are not light. The Inuit example does not erase dose, context, or individual thyroid risk, right? You don't have their genetics. All right. If you need one-on-one support, one-on-one coaching with me, apply for coaching at drsarahzaldivar.com/coaching calls. And you can sign up to my free newsletter at drsarahzaldivar.com/newsletter to stay updated with my research and everything I'm putting out. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.